Hello besties and welcome to another Genshin theory! This is going to be one of those videos where I go over a few smaller theories. Today we're going to talk about the connection between Oz and the Thunderbird and the potential identities of the 7 sovereigns. This first theory was actually created by one of my best friends, and I just added on to it. She's been asking me to make a video on her theory for a while now, and I think it's really good, so I'm more than happy to share it with you guys. Today we're going to go back to Surumi Island and look at the Thunderbird again. I really didn't do much with Surumi Island in terms of theories other than coming up with a potential demon name for the Thunderbird, so I feel like this is kind of necessary considering how wild that questline was. The Thunderbird is one of the more unique gods in that she often left her country of origin. Most gods would really just stay in one country except for a few isolated cases, but the Thunderbird would leave Surumi all the time. We don't know exactly where she went, but I think it's safe to say that she ended up in Mondstadt at some point. The Thundering Fury artifact set tells her story, so you'd think the domain to get it would be on Surumi Island, but it's in Mondstadt. You could argue that that's just because the developers and writers already had the idea for the Thunderbird story, and they just wanted to get it started before Inazuma came out, but with how meticulously planned out Genshin is, I kinda doubt it. They easily could have done some other artifact set description for Thundering Fury, but they chose to go with the Surumi Island story. Although the Thunderbird really didn't care about the people of Surumi Island, she did like Rue. Rue was a child who sang to the Thunderbird, which caused them to develop a bond that she really didn't have with anyone else. When the Thunderbird returned to the island to see Rue again, she found his blood in a sacrificial chalice. His tribe had killed him as an offering to the Thunderbird, but since she was actually friends with Rue, she was understandably upset and destroyed the island, killing the rest of the tribe. The Thunderbird is not the only Electrobird we know of. Fischl has an Electrobird companion named Oz. We don't really know what Oz is. With other characters who have animals, we at least know where they come from. We know how Xiangling met Guoba and who he actually is, but with Oz we can't say the same. There's some debate on whether or not Oz is actually a real living being or just a figment of Fischl's imagination. Personally, I think he's real because we see him interact with people other than Fischl with no problem. As for how Oz and Fischl met, that's pretty weird too. On her 14th birthday, Fischl was bullied by kids close to her age. She went to her parents to ask for advice and comfort, but they treated her the same as her bullies did. Fischl went to the library to cry, but felt like she was being watched. When she looked up, she saw an Electrovision and a raven that would soon be named after the bird from her favorite book, Flowers for Princess Fischl. Also, Fischl's real name is Amy, in case you didn't know that. Fischl is just the name of the main character from that book. I get that visions just show up at significant moments for their users, but I have no idea where Oz came from. We've never heard anything like that before. But there is a theme of Electrobirds showing up to befriend lonely children. The Thunderbird returned to Surumi Island for Rue, and Oz manifested for Fischl. Both Oz and the Thunderbird have a connection to Mondstadt. The Thunderbird's artifact set somehow ended up there, and Oz accompanies a girl from Mondstadt even if he may not initially be from there. I know it sounds like I'm getting ready to say that Oz is the Thunderbird, but that can't be possible. The Thunderbird died a long time ago and not even in Mondstadt. A killed her on Seirai Island in Inazuma. But it wouldn't be entirely impossible for Oz to be an extension of the Thunderbird. In Zhongli's second story quest, we learned that Azhdaha split his consciousness into 3 beings: his original body, Kunjin, and a young girl he created named Jio. Kunjin was just a normal person that Azhdaha possessed, but he entirely made Jio, so she's fully part of him. I think Oz could be the Thunderbird's version of Azhdaha's Jio. The Thunderbird may have known what fate awaited her when she returned to Inazuma after killing Surumi's people, so she portioned a part of her consciousness into another Electrobird when she was in Mondstadt. Then, when the time was right, that Electrobird found a lonely child and befriended her. In my last 2 videos, I briefly talked about the 7 sovereigns of Old Teyvat. They were basically the old world's version of our current Archons, but when the primordial ones showed up and took over heaven, they were forced to flee underground. Since then, they've supposedly died there, but there's actually a lot of evidence that suggests otherwise. Azhdaha and Kokomi both seem to either be 2 of the sovereigns or somehow be related to them. Since we just talked about Azhdaha a little bit, I'll start with Kokomi here. All the way back in 2.0, I was already theorizing that Kokomi had ulterior motives to her involvement in the Resistance. While I don't think any of that was necessarily correct, I do think that I was onto something when I took a closer look at Kokomi. Kokomi has a lot of characteristics that make it seem like she isn't human. In her story quest, she speaks about herself in the way her body operates like she's something else entirely. She frequently mentions an energy system that makes it sound like she's a robot, but I don't think she's some sort of android like Catherine. Aside from her weird energy system, she has other non-human qualities. In the Inazuma Archon quests, we see Kokomi appear out of nowhere like she teleported to us.
Her Excellency!
The wait is over, my comrades. Now is our moment!
Teleportation is a skill we've only seen non-humans use. For example, Xiao teleports all the time and he's not human. Kokomi's constellation could point to her not being human too. Her constellation is named Dracana Somnolenta, or Sleeping Dragon. Some people take this literally, while some other people think it's a reference to Chinese military strategist Zhuge Liang, who was famously nicknamed Hidden Dragon. I understand that people may think her constellation name is a reference to a historical figure from the culture where the game originates, but Genshin tends to reference history in terms of a character's country in the game, not out of it. For example, the Sakoku Decree is based on a real event called the Sakoku Edict that happened in Japan, not China. Another example is Conria using Latin as their main language. The in-game country that uses Latin has fallen, just like real-world countries that used to use Latin. So even though Genshin comes from China, the developers seem to favor historical references that match a character's in-game nationality rather than the developer's own country. Personally, I think we can take Kokomi's constellation name literally. Plus, the 7 sovereigns are literally dragons, so that seems to line up pretty clearly so far. The Hydro Sovereign is the one we know the most about thanks to Enkanomiya's lore. In the Byakuyakoku collection, it's prophesied that the Hydro Sovereign will take the form of a human and return to society from underground. Kokomi looks human, but clearly isn't. I think that makes her a pretty good candidate. Not to mention, she's literally a descendant of Enkanomiyan people who were stuck underground for a long time. But Kokomi's family has had control of Watatsumi Island for a while, so I assume they're all humans too, or else that would seriously raise suspicion from insiders and outsiders. That would mean that the Hydro Sovereign possessed Kokomi at some point, and that's the fulfillment of the story in the Byakuyakoku collection. Agedaha's story is a lot more straightforward than Kokomi's. We don't know anything about Agedaha's life before Morax took him above ground. All we know is that he was down there for a while. At the end of Zhongli's second story quest, he implies that Agedaha is way older than him, saying that he can't relate to Agedaha's long-lived life and that the life of an elemental being is longer than any in this world. For a long time, we've assumed that Zhongli at 6,000 years old was the oldest character we knew, but it seems like Agedaha is older. Agedaha's story seems to match the Sovereigns. They were some of the oldest entities in Teyvat, but were forced underground a long time ago. We don't know how long Agedaha was living underground, but we know it had to be for a long time. The reason Agedaha went above ground in the first place was because Morax felt bad for him and gave him eyes. If Agedaha is actually one of the Sovereigns, then I don't see why he would inexplicably be blind. Instead, I think he went blind after living underground for so long. Lots of real-life animals that live underground or in caves are blind. Some of those blind animals don't even have eyes at all. The Mexican tetra has evolved to completely lose its eyes. I think something similar may have happened to Agedaha, not through evolution but through disuse. After all, there's no need for eyesight when you're living in perpetual darkness. One of Agedaha's drops is called Blood Jade Branch. This name is strikingly similar to Blood Branch Coral, which we find in Enkanomiya. Blood Branch Coral is supposedly related to Urabashi, who definitely isn't one of the Sovereigns because he's a snake and not a dragon, but I still think the similarity is too important to overlook. Enkanomiya is where we first learned about the Sovereigns. I don't know if it necessarily matters where Blood Branch Coral comes from. Instead of being something literal in Genshin's plot, the similar names may just be a narrative device that the developers are using to push our theories in the right direction and get us to see a connection between Agedaha and the Sovereigns. That's only 2 of the 7 Sovereigns, though. I'm sure the other 5 will show up at some point in the future. If I'm right about Kokomi and Agedaha being the Hydro and Geo Sovereigns respectively, then there's already been one from each country, and that shows a pretty clear precedent. In that case, why haven't we met a Sovereign in Mondstadt? Maybe Conria's extensive underground tunnels beneath the country interfered with its habitat and subsequently killed it. But regardless of that, I think we need to keep an eye on Kokomi for the time being, and when we meet new characters in new countries, we should look for any signs of the Sovereigns. This video is a lot shorter than the last few I've made, but honestly I got so sick of writing really long scripts, so I decided to go for a short video this week. But next week, I've actually got 2 videos coming out. One will be the typical theory video I upload on weekends, but I'll also be uploading the results from my challenge account. In case you haven't been watching the live streams, I've been doing a challenge account where I play every day but don't pull for an entire month. As of recording this, I'm AR41 and I have 111 intertwined fates on that account. That video is going to be a lot of fun, so be sure to check it out when it comes out. Speaking of polling, Yai's almost gone, so good luck to everyone polling for Kokomi and A. I have them both and they're both so amazing, so you'll be good with whoever you decide to get. Thank you so much for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Bye, besties!